All right, welcome you guys out there. Really appreciate you showing up for another Friday Night Live. I know it's been many, many moons since I've done one of these. It's my intention in the future, obviously, to get this station going a little bit more, this channel, a little bit more robust. So if you guys like what you see, make sure you subscribe. You probably already are, but maybe tell a friend. It would really help us out. And so again, what I'm here to do tonight is to kind of introduce you to a passion project I've had for many, many years. Many of you have already known about it, heard about it, and I had been lagging just because of COVID. I mean, everything that's been going on, it's been, as everybody knows, a pretty challenging time for all of us. So I'm happy to say that we're moving through it. We switched to streaming, so many of you have been doing streaming with us, and I've still been working behind the scenes on things like the Bridgman project, as well as other projects that I want to bring to fruition in the future. So without further ado, here is the book, you guys. This is the book I've been wanting to get out to you. It's one that's very dear to my heart. I spent many, many years as a young student trying to figure out how to work from this guy, right? Now this book comes in many iterations. There's little condensed versions. The covers, I have like 10 different covers on this thing. It's been printed so many times. Every artist has this in their library. If you don't, you're going to need to pick it up for this to work with my book, because they go tandem. But Bridgman is iconic. His sketches are, I wouldn't say legendary, but they're very well known amongst all working artists, illustrators, fine artists, concept artists, whatever. The problem I always had with it was the cryptic aspect of, and this book's been pretty ripped up because I think I used it as one of my sample books when I was doing my actual book. I've cut up like 4 of them or something. But anyway, if you look at what we're talking about here, he's highly linear, and that's all fine and good, but it's hard to know which lines are supposed to be memorized, which ones are just there as a second afterthought. His shading leaves a lot to be desired, in my opinion. So that was one of the difficult things, was try to see the three-dimensional aspect underneath the linear aspect, which always really got me a bit, right? And then it's a matter of understanding his concept. So he talks, some of his verbiage about anatomy does not follow or line up with, like, say, Robert Beverly Hale or Elliot Goldfinger. So you're going to want to do a lot of detective work while you're learning anatomy, and that's an art in and of itself. This is just one aspect of learning anatomy. We have many layers. Eric's done an amazing job online, as many of you know, doing the intensives. We're going to have Brian doing some of the fundamental, kind of like a Hampton style. You've got me coming in doing, any number of crazy things. But, what I really love about the book that I came up with was embedding it with a good 10 hours probably of QR codes up here in the corner. And if you just take your phone and click that, you'll see this drawing in a condensed version being done in 3 to maybe 5 minutes. Whereas when I did it, it was probably a 30, 40-minute drawing, right? So if you want to see the whole entirety of this book being done real time, you're going to want to take the course which goes along with it. Now that course can be taken a la carte. You can sign up for it individually after December 1st, or on December 1st, or you can actually get it included in the drawing program. If you're taking the drawing program online, it'll be in that aspect of the program as well. So that's how you'll be able to take it. Now, in this particular book, there's 3 levels that we're going to talk about. And this next couple Fridays, I'm going to demo each one of these techniques that I'm going to walk you through. We do the stereotypical newsprint with Ritmo or Conte 1710B, any of the pencils that we utilize, the Wolf carbons. This is our stereotypical style of training at the Atelier, right? This is our brick. Now, this is what we do. Now, Yoni, who I want to give a shout out to, Yoni, the model we're using, he's phenomenal. He looks like he just walked literally right out of the pages of this Bridgman book. Now, the Bridgman book. So I took photos of, as close as I could, of the poses that were in the book, within reason, right? And they're well lit, direct lit, so you can go, and usually when I do, the way I did the book is the drawing that I want you to do is right across from that photo so that you can utilize it and just put it out in front of you, and you don't have to like flip back through the book and find the photo and then go back. And then after the photo, you'll have little descriptions and notes that talk a little bit further about things I liked about the drawing, things I don't. I did not deliberately put anatomical knowledge in here. I know it. I could have put it in. I could have made the book twice as big, sold it for more, made it feel like you're getting more substantial information. But every anatomy book I've ever had says the same thing and fills up 3/4 of the book with that kind of banter when I really just want to see drawings to copy. I want to see drawings that I can get to, that I can then decipher and get into my brain and start getting it to work. So it's a 3-step process that we're going to go through. It's what we see, or what we know, excuse me, and that's going to be, so when I look through, you look through the book here in the beginning, it goes through some, the hoopla. We're going to be going from Bridgman and studying what we know, right? So we're going to look at Bridgman, and we're going to redecipher his drawings looking at the way I do it. You're going to use part of his, part of mine, and you're going to learn to decipher his calligraphy through my calligraphy, right? And that's learning what you know about anatomy, about design. Then you go to a photo and you interpret that photo utilizing the information you learned, and now you're drawing what you see. You're seeing a model, you're translating what you know from what you've learned from Bridgman and other books as well, and other sources, and you're now using it to draw from a photo and pull out more of those concepts. Now, once we've gotten good at that, then we go to designing more like Frazetta, and we're going to look at Frazettas, and we're going to break apart some of his iconic imagery, because he pretty much is Bridgman like as a finished product. He paints, he inks, he draws, he does watercolor, he does everything. And he does it, in my opinion, as good or better than Bridgman. So he takes Bridgman's concepts and tells you what the end game is. He shows you what the end game is. And so what we're going to be doing with that is later in the book, as you go through it, you'll see that there's ballpoint pen sketches that are interpretations of different Frazettas. And they're taking the concepts that we're learning, and we're starting to use another medium, ballpoint pen, which is a very direct medium. That's a fun way to kind of learn as well. And then we're also doing the black, white, or the white on black board, Prismacolor, Verithin drawings from photos and from Frazetta and from other sources like that. So what you're doing is you're learning 3 different methods: what you know, what you see, what you wish you saw, which is the magic area where Leindecker is, where Buscema is, where Claire Wendling is, all the greats, right, are in what you would like to see. But you got to go through what you know and what you see in order to get there. And I'm going to demonstrate one of the iconic drawings tonight for you in charcoal, and next week I will do ink, and the week after that I will do the black or the white on black board. So this is an example of what was in the book. This is the one that I translated. Now, if you look at Bridgman's drawing, which I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to do this one for you tonight, look at the difference in readability, right? Over here, we have pinched in the waist, flared out the shoulders, or the lats, excuse me. Over here, it's kind of dumpy looking, right, in my opinion. It's probably the best drawing in the book, in my opinion, but it still falls very short of what I would like to see as far as readability, understanding of what is actually going on, and what is it you're supposed to garner from that drawing when you draw it. Because reading is only going to do so much. Then you got to get to getting information in your brain so that you can utilize it. And how do you do that? You do it through repetition. But what kind of repetition? Well, you need to repeat the proper methodology, procedure, in order to acquire that information so that you can then design what you see versus copying what you see. And that's where everybody wants to be. They want to be able to sit and draw something more spectacular than what they see, or out of their head more spectacularly than they can imagine. And that's where the great conceptors are. That's where you really want to be a very productive and be able to get compensated for your skill sets. Okay, so that's where we're heading. Okay, and I'm going to show you a little snippet of it tonight. But again, this is the photo then. After you got done with this, you would go over this, right? And after you got done with those, you would go over to this. Okay, now you're interpreting the drawing, this one, in a different method, working in reverse, because now you have a dark surface, so you're reversing the process. Instead of building your way up to your darkest darks, you have your darkest darks already as part of the board. And now you basically put information around those darks and build up. So it forces your brain to think at a more complicated level of design. And design is one of the hardest things to teach. So when you look at this one here, now we have Bridgman's interpretation in another medium, having to translate it. Then we go over and translate from a photograph that looks like it just walked out of the Bridgman book of that pose. And we see now not a splayed figure, but a figure with skin on top of it and fat pads, even though he's very lean. And we now have to dig out of that the insertion points where some of this deeper splayed information, which Bridgman's trying to tell you. He's very big on wedging. He's very big on dynamics. He's very big on active and inactive sides. He's very big on juxtaposition of weight and also where things insert and overlap, the insertion points, right? The origins and insertions are very important. Now, we aren't going to get in, this is not, if you really want to move past, once you go through this course, you go over to, say, Eric's course, and you're going to see going through and saying, okay, here's the latissimus, where it connects to, where it goes from, where it goes to, what is around it, what's on top of it, what's underneath it. And then you're learning a very écorché style, very similar to doing an écorché in clay, which is similar to dissection, right? So you're working all the way from the skeletal structure all the way up to the surface morphology, the surface forms. That's your upper level stuff, the lats, the traps, the delts, you know, the easy stuff, really. And then we get into the lower, deeper levels, which takes a lot more tenacity, studying, patience. And that's why I say that studying anatomy is a 10-year course of study. It's not a 10-week course of study. You do it cyclically, stylistically, year in and year out, and you layer other pieces of knowledge and experience on top of it in between the times that you take it. So you might take torso front and back with me for 10 weeks in a class, right? And then a year later, take that same class over again. Test yourself. See how much layered knowledge has come on with all the life drawings you've done, with all the illustrations you've tried to execute, with all the inventions you've tried to do. You start to see a method to the madness and also an understanding of really how to study anatomy, in my opinion, correctly. And most people just, quite frankly, do not study it correctly. They get frustrated, they quit easily, and they don't know what to even do with this book, even if you gave it to them, okay? So my job is going to be to walk you through that, make it fun. You know, I'm a pretty serious guy, so hopefully I'll try to keep it somewhat comical, but, you know, that's not my forte. Normally I'm all business. But, so again, we're going to get to it in yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's get into it. That's enough of me gibbering jabbering about the book and whatnot. Okay, so go time. Got a nice smooth piece of, relatively smooth piece of newsprint. Looks like maybe my oily palms there kind of didn't do so good on that paper. Let's see, let's get this ready to go. I'm going to get some images out in front of me to work from.
Jeff, can we do some drawing for a bit and then take some of the questions from the chat?
Let's go about 10 minutes, and then you can start firing some questions at me. You guys can feel free to, you know, I'm usually good at talking and drawing, but I'm a little rusty, quite frankly, with the fact that, you know, we haven't been drawing. I mean, we haven't been working from life now for about a year with all the quarantine and stuff. I know many of you are feeling that burn as well. And it's just one of those little snippets in history you just got to kind of work through. It's not the ideal. It's not all that fun, but it is what it is. And we have to just chuck and jive and move through this stuff. And that's kind of how my whole life's been. So I'm kind of used to it, to tell you the truth. And, you know, this one's been a little odd, I have to say. But we'll make it through. And art's a wonderful place to dump some energy and time into when you're working on trying to make it through a very strange period like that. So the thing about this drawing that always confused me, this Bridgman drawing, is he just leaves the Delt like completely willy-nilly. He doesn't really describe it all that well. You know, I think he could have ended it a lot more poetically. And I know a lot of his drawings in his defense were done at like off of like a piece of charcoal on a 6-foot stick with probably 150 people in his class. And it was probably just brutally difficult to do. So I don't think a lot of these images were not really intended to make it into a book. I'm pretty sure they were compiled later and after the fact, and some of them are upside down in the book actually, which is really kind of odd. And you know, in general though, I still think it's one of the best books. I really felt compelled to do something on it because I felt like it was so often misunderstood, so often not used to its fullest potential, and what a shame, because he's a genius. He really is, bona fide. But I do think, like anything, whether it's for Zeta or anybody, there's improvements that can be made. There's articulations that can be, a hand that can be lent to his drawings. Because if you think about it, Frank Riley, who our art school, Watts Atelier, pretty much is carrying the torch for, is one of the main, he was a monitor for Bridgman. And many people don't know that. And so he knows Bridgman's work very intimately. And he basically went and designed a rhythmical grid system after the fact that was, I think, superior in many ways to how Bridgman approached things. Now, I think when you combine the two together, you have an incredible arsenal of information from which to work on for your figurative work, whether it be highly realistic, whether it be more, more concept-driven, invention-driven. If you're going to go into concept and visual development, you need to know this stuff better than almost anybody. If you're a fine artist, I mean, you're going to be working from pretty high-end photo reference usually, maybe from live models and photo reference combined, and it's not going to be as big of a deal. But if you're working out of your head entirely or a great deal of the time, then man, you need to know these concepts way more efficiently than most. So for those of you out there that are aspiring to that, I've done a fair amount of work in that. A lot of the guys from our school ultimately went into that because that's where a lot of the money as a young artist is nowadays, is in the entertainment fields. Okay, so as I'm laying this in, I'm basically just starting that big scaffolding. I like straights a lot, and I like to find them and inject them into my drawings because I believe that they are the real linchpin that holds a drawing together structurally. And so if you think of it from a masculine-feminine standpoint, the masculine being straights and the feminine being curved, when we draw men, we have an easier time finding those straights, and that's a lot of times why I like to use them to draw from when we do these kind of things, anatomical work. Because the female is just so subtle, it's a lot more difficult to find your way around. Now, when I'm doing this, I'm thinking rib cage underneath. I'm thinking big sculptural relaxed rhythm lines, trying to find the size relationships of the hip to the length of the rib cage, to the size of the pectoralis, to the deltoid relationship to the pecs, to the rib cage, to all of it, right? So it's all related. Everything needs to connect together, work together, and feel like it's designed with intentionality, not accidentally. And when I look at that Bridgman drawing, I think it feels a little clunky and dumpy to me. And again, it's probably the best drawing in the book to me, one of them. And it still, leaves me totally wanting and confused half the time when I look at it. When I first looked at it when I was a kid, it was just kind of like, what am I supposed to do with this? And I found myself drawing Frazetta a lot more because Frazetta felt more clear to me, more clean, easier to digest, easier to read as far as visually. You can go ahead and ask some questions if you want. I'm good to go.
Do you have anything to say about sort of the early development of the creative process of making the book? Someone's asking about potentially like whether copyright things that you had to go through.
Yeah.
A sort of study guide for another work.
Yeah, the big thing is I couldn't really include, obviously, Bridgman's drawings in my actual book because they're all interpretation drawings, me interpreting his concepts, his drawings into my own calligraphy, into my own way of doing things. So when I went to do it, one of the big questions was, well, how am I going to do this book where I can't really put Frazettas in it because I can't get the rights to use the images, so I'm going to have to just kind of advise people to go pick up some of his books, which you should do anyway, and have in your library. And then, of course, the Bridgman book, which you must have it in order to do this course, so it's not like a replacement for it. It's actually necessary that you actually have it. So it was one of those things. I talked to a lot of different copyright people and lawyers and this and that, and just going through and figuring out what I can and can't do. And ultimately, most of this book is, again, heavily interpreted translation drawings of his drawings through my calligraphy, through my knowledge. So all original stuff of my own, from his drawings, of course. Oh yeah, someone was asking about when I went to go and construct this particular book, what the actual, some of the legality issues and some of the things, maybe possibly copyright things that I had to go through in order to get it to come to fruition. That's why it took so long to do, actually, quite frankly, there was a lot of questions that had to be dug through and answered before I could actually feel confident and comfortable going ahead and releasing the book. So. So now we're there, and we're getting ready to go. Okay, go ahead if you have a question.
Yeah. He says, "Hi Jeff, would you first learn names and shapes of muscles, or move on to start with intuitive anatomy?"
Well, funny enough that you asked that, because the question was, when you go to study anatomy, do you go with all the names, or do you got to go more from an intuitive standpoint? I drew extremely exceptional drawings way before I could ever recite any of the names, origins, functions of any of the muscles, and I still don't have a really a perfect, complete, ridiculous understanding of all the insertions, origins, and what everything exactly does. I mean, I know a great deal about it, but there's always more to be learned. There's always more to be dug through. And so I think what the best way to go about it is to first start with basically what you need to do is use emulation. So you're emulating my drawings to get them into your head, to get a calligraphy developed so that you can tell what something's supposed to look like. And so you're becoming familiar more with geometric shapes, where those shapes go, where they come from, where they go to, without really knowing the exact particulars of it. And then later on, say if you're going to ever teach it, then you want to go ahead and get in there and really start to understand all the names, the insertions, the origins, and all that, because you really need it. Because otherwise it's all that thingamajigger right there, or that little whatever. Someone will ask you a question and you won't know how to address it properly. And it just it doesn't lend credibility to your knowledge, and it makes you sound a little less professional. And I think if you're going to command the authority of a class, you're going to command an authority of teaching something this complex, you really need to do your due diligence. And it was recommended to me by a sculpting teacher I had years into my teaching it. And I originally called this class Intuitive Anatomy because I knew it very intuitively. I did not know it as academically as I had wanted to. And so it made sense to me that we needed a class to basically start the process of learning anatomy. And over the years, I continued to study. I taught écorché classes and sculpting. I got really heavily vested in the anatomy. And it's probably one of my strongest areas, quite frankly. And Eric is also absolutely phenomenal with it. Usually teaches the Bridgman class, a lot of times at the Atelier. And I'll have him in here later in the month for the last session to go over him and I talking about what Bridgman has meant to us, what Frazetta has meant to us, how we've used that information, what it's done for us. So here I'm going to talk a little bit before I get into the next question. Here's the external oblique. And again, we have the serratus muscles here. We have the latissimus coming up here. This is the dense aspect of your latissimus right in here. And that's, if you were to reach underneath your armpit and kind of feel, you can feel the girth of the latissimus muscle as it comes up and attaches underneath onto the it'll be attaching up here onto the humerus. The pectoralis muscle is three-headed, and you can see here he's explaining like the top head here, then the center head here, and the bottom head here. So if you were to say lifting weights, you would be doing decline bench press, flat bench press, incline bench press, upper, middle, lower. Three heads, three ways of working it out, three ways of doing it. The deltoid, three-headed, front, middle, back. On the drawing, you can't even tell what you're looking at on his drawing. It's kind of just the front with, I don't know where the middle went. I don't really know exactly what that little swirly line is in it. When I look at this, I don't know what that is. I think this is the front. That might be the separation between front and middle. I'm not sure what's going on up here. I've got a gap in thinking right there, which I'm not a huge fan of. I can't tell. It's hard to dig out of that what you're trying to get, right? So my whole point is we need to clarify this deltoid. I am going to draw it a little bit more. Here's the insertion of it coming down onto the, let's say the humerus bones underneath here, and here's the head up there. This deltoid wraps and attaches. The pectoralis wraps and attaches, and then the lat comes up and attaches. So you've got a bunch of muscles attaching onto the actual humerus bone, which is your upper arm bone. And those muscles act as levers and pulleys to create either locomotion, movement, right? And so we need to start understanding the mechanics. Now, this is where Bridgman really shines. He talks about the human machine. He talks about the body as a mechanical machine, not so much as an anatomical text like, say, Elliot Goldfinger, where you get in there and you can't, I mean, it's like as dry as the day is long. I mean, you just want to take a snooze fest. It's just unbelievable. There's no good drawings in there. There's great information about depth of muscles and layering, but it's so dry, most artists will never be able to make it through, like, say, the Elliot Goldfinger book and know what to even do with it. It's a cross-reference book for a book like this. This is artistic anatomy, anatomy as an artist and a painter needs to understand it, not as a surgeon student or a medical student at one of the medical schools or something. Okay?
Would you mind showing off your materials, what you're using today?
Okay, well, on smooth newsprint, so we want to know what materials I'm using. Smooth newsprint, I've got a Wolf Carbon 4B. I've got a Conte in the wings, 1710B. I've got an old Ritmo. Here's another Conte. I've got some Giocondas hanging here in the wings, just in case, these guys. So those are kind of my pencils. My eraser is a kneaded eraser. It's pretty simple. Smooth newsprint, cheap, efficient, and my go-to for absorbing visual information that needs to be committed to memory so that it can be then later used intuitively to draw what we would like to see versus what we're seeing. So right now we're learning academically from a book, my book and Bridgman's book, what it is we are even talking about. And that's where you're going to want to look at Bridgman's book and read some of his text, because I did not include, again, the anatomical verbiage. You may want to have the Elliot Goldfinger book. You may want to have the Robert Beverly Hale book out and do some cross-referencing. And those books are all in my suggested reading at the back of the book. So you can go take a look at that suggested reading and slowly start acquiring those books. A lot of them are easy to find now with the internet. And we can get in and just really start to do some serious learning of this stuff. Now, here's the oblique muscle, the external oblique. Now it attaches on the crest of the iliac, and he leaves in his drawing a nice little gap there where I can say, okay, that looks like it should be the bone. And then underneath the bone, I ask myself, well, what could possibly be underneath? So when you're looking at his drawing, you have to ask questions like this, like, what could that even be? Because his drawings are so cryptic, you're going to look at it and have no idea what he's trying to explain unless you cross-reference a cleaner source, like Elliot Goldfinger, like one of these other artists that are more academically inclined, and they're not drawing books per se. They're, let's look at those books to find out what we're trying to decipher in Bridgman's drawings.
So a question is asking, or a viewer is asking, if you're using the Riley rhythms during the lay-in, so you could talk about it.
Yeah, of course, I wish this book could encompass, as you know, the Riley method information as well. That's another book that I'm hoping to do at a later date. I personally feel that there's never been a very extremely good book done on the Riley method. It's unfortunate. It's just not many people know it well enough, and they claim to, but they really don't. And unfortunately, that hasn't been done yet. So yes, I am using the rhythms. That's going to be something you'll have to pick up a little bit of that from me as we do it, or if you're studying on the online program with us, you'll get it through Brian, you'll get it through Eric, you'll get it through me, 20-minute head lay-ins, quick sketch, all those. We go heavily in depth into the Riley method in the online program. But we have to parse out this information and use it differently, right? We can't shove everything into one book. It would be a 10,000 page book and it would be ridiculous. So with classes, with books, it's not just me trying to sell more stuff to you. It's you need to pull it apart and make it digestible. Otherwise, people get so overwhelmed, they can't even think straight. So yes, it would be somewhat ideal to already know and have a heavy grasp on the Riley method in order to fully be able to reverse engineer Bridgman's drawings. But I'm going to be that for you. And you're going to learn a lot of it. But this will not be the end-all be-all of anything. There's no end-all be-all book. So this book will lead you to other courses of study with myself, with other courses on our program, with other books that maybe I do. It'll also drive you over into other books like, Bridgman or Hogarth. You'll look at differently. You'll look at Loomis differently. You'll start looking at different sources. Now, I'm not even lighting this yet right now, this drawing. I'm simply doing a little bit of preliminary mapping. I know the light source is coming from above. And I know that because I can see the armpit is very dark. And I can see where he's a linear draftsman, so when he goes for a darker halftone or a shadow, he scribbles heavier. He draws with cross-contouring like in this side that's a lot more aggressive and a lot darker than it is, say, out in the pectoralis right here. So I know that that's being lit. And if I know that's being lit, then I know these forms have to be rolling. And I know how they kind of roll. I know generally how far a pectoralis muscle will come off of a well-built male, okay, from having drawn 7 million of them from life and drawing them from photos and inventing them and drawing all this stuff. So when I look at it, it's not a huge difficulty inventing the lighting on this particular drawing when the time comes. And this is one of the few drawings he's put any lighting even on, which is, again, something I find very difficult because lighting reveals form, and form is best taught through direct lighting. And yet, here's a draftsman that's using lighting that's highly ambiguous, extremely vague, and as a result is very difficult for any new artist to know how to navigate the form, because the form's being so concealed in the ambiguity of the lighting that's been lit on these particular drawings. And so what we want to do is open up that lighting and create a stronger sense of form and lighting on form, and I will have to do some invention and embellishment of most of his drawings in order to accomplish that.
Do you have any Frazetta books to recommend for people?
Oh, there's so many. There's Icon, there's Living Legend. I love his names. They're always these grandiose, I'm the best artist that ever lived. I mean, he was one of them, but his books are always like Living Legend, Icon. You know, and I have in the book, when you get it, the suggested reading will have 5 or 6 major Frazetta books that I would recommend you getting one of them to start with, one of the big ones like Icon, or one of those that has a lot of them. You can also just, again, look around on the internet. You'll find a lot of information on him and the drawings. And, you know, I'll tell you what painting I'm working from or what drawing I'm working from. Then you'll have to go find that information either in one of the books that you buy, or just, you know, looking around on the internet, you can find a lot as well. But I would recommend that you pick up some of them and have a good my library is insane. And it's kind of I'm a book nerd. I've always loved books. I have a huge passion for books. I always will. No matter what kind of technology comes around, I still will want to hold the book, look at the book, put it out in front of me, turn the pages, get ink on it, get charcoal on it. That's where it's at for me. It's always been a very, I love them. I love them, and I'm hoping that I can contribute some books that will later be valued by artists in their cornerstone of their libraries for many, many decades to come.
So the chat was pretty excited to see you on Proco's channel.
Yeah.
Could you talk about potentially any more crossover?
Yeah, I mean, I love, you know, Stan and I go so far back. I mean, he was with me as a young kid. I helped train him from a very early age. He taught for me for many, many years, as many of you know. He's an absolute wonderful, amazing talent and an amazing, amazing guy. I was going to say kid. He's not a kid anymore. He's just a guy that I trained not long ago that has now gone on to wonderful things. And so, we would love to do more stuff. We are kind of moving along in different yet same trajectories. I mean, I think we've been trying to find that common way to interact with each other as far as where we both belong in the big picture. But I did a nice demo, one of the ones I showed you a while back, for his channel, and that'll be coming out, I believe, December 3rd. So in a couple, not too long from now, we will be airing that particular demonstration, and you're going to get sick of hearing me probably on this Bridgman stuff over the next month, but it really has been a long time coming, and I really am so proud of it and really want you all to really know that there's a lot of help coming your way for learning this stuff, because it really will shave off 5 years of frustration or maybe more. Because what happens usually is people will train incorrectly from these things and develop so many bad habits that later, if they're lucky enough to have somebody that's knowledgeable enough to remove them, they have to come in and remove those and replace them. And that's 10 times longer and harder than if you just did it right in the first place. So right now what I'm doing here, and I'll go back and forth between philosophical banter about things like design, inspiration, calligraphy, and then I'll go into more particulars of what I'm doing. This area right here, although it's considered part of, obviously, the leg, we're getting into hip region. This first book is torso, front, back. The next book that I'm 70% done with right now, or 50% to 70% done with, is the arms and legs. And that'll be coming in a year or a little bit longer. but it'll be coming down the road. And that's another 20 hours has already been filmed. It's going to have video embedded in it. It'll be the arms and legs. I've basically taken the bulk of the Bridgman book, not the hands, because I think he does the hands really well, although I think there's work that could be done with it. But I focused primarily on the arms, legs, torso, front, back. Didn't really do the neck, didn't do the face, didn't do the front section. I cherry picked out of it what I thought would be most helpful. I mean, the book would be, it's already going to be 300 pages, just me condensing it down the way I've done it, much less getting everything in there. It would have been like a 1,000-page book, you know? So that's kind of where we're at. But as far as with Proco, Stan's awesome. You know, he's going to continue to do amazing stuff, I'm sure. And I hope we can be, you know, find some collaborations with him in the future. So. Yeah. So again, I'm getting this thing laid in, right? And we're seeing it. Now, I don't like, as I look up a little bit, I want to stretch this out just a little bit more. So I'm going to pull down the medius here, and then I'm going to pull the maximus down a little bit, pull this out. So constantly when you're doing these drawings, especially when you're talking as much as I am, you're constantly shaving sections out. Now look at how I squared off the butt. Now, most people's butts are more rounded than that, but I like to find, again, angularity in the way that I move around a form, rather than drawing a bump, another bump, another bump, another bump, and then it looks like the Michelin Man, or it looks like tumors all over the person or something. You want those straights in there, and they're hard to find. One of the best things you're going to learn from me is where to put those. So for those of you who are just joining us, I'll take a little tiny break from the drawing. And for those of you who already heard it, you can just kind of, you know, stretch, you know, take a breather for a second. I'll be back drawing here in a few minutes. Here's the Bridgman book. This is what we've been waiting for. Translation by me, taking Bridgman's drawings, deciphering them into more articulate versions using 3 primarily different layers of learning. Learning to know what you're seeing, learning to decipher what you're seeing with what you know, and then working into the last part of the formula, which is drawing what you wish you saw from what you've seen and what you know. And that's where the magic happens. It could be years before you unlock that 3rd tier, but I'm going to help you to understand that as best I can. There's no real perfect way to do that I've seen. It's best to show by example. So again, the book is full of these techniques. It'll go through materials. It'll have QR codes buried in it. Those QR codes unlock these drawings being, bits and pieces of these drawings being done. If I didn't film the drawing, I will do an auditory video. You'll see it says audio. That will be me talking about this page of sketches, telling you what I was intending to do, what I liked about them, what I don't like about them, and what I think you should get from that. These are the practice pages. So anyway, the book is interactive. It's fully embedded with tons of links that go to our YouTube channel that will have these particular videos on them. And it'll be unlocked by those of you who have the book. So when you want to study this book, yes, you can study it without the course, but I highly recommend that you take the course. And it's not just a sales pitch. You're going to get 10 times, 20 times the learning out of watching me do the whole drawings with my verbal, with what I like, what I don't like, and walking you through each one of them. And you can just go back and play it as many times as you need to as you're doing my drawing, as if you were sitting in my studio, like right now, watching me do my homework on how to study this anatomy. Yes, and it will be available December 1st. We had to, I know everybody's been wanting to order it, pre-order it. We're doing it print on demand. We had to get things locked down. We had to get a website made for it. There's been a lot of little particulars that needed to be done before we could release it. So I apologize for yanking your chain a little bit and saying, hey, look, you know, and keep teasing you with this thing. But it is out in a couple days. You can get it. You can go on. Now, one thing you're going to have to remember, you're going to order the book. It's going to take 3 to 5 days to get it, right? It is the holidays. So be aware of that when you sign up for that and the course, you can start watching the videos on the course. You can start going through. You can start sketching. You can start getting warmed up, getting your materials. And then when the book comes, you can hit the ground running. But you're going to need the book in order to do the course. So be a little patient there as the two are intertwining with ordering your book, and actually getting the course rocking and rolling.
How much is the book?
The book is $29.99, right? I love the 99 thing. It's just me. It's kind of cheesy. But it's $29. I think you're going to find it an incredible bargain considering how much video is embedded in it, how interactive it is. And it's, again, I tried to make it one of those price points that I felt would be, real reasonable and accessible. We will also, let me tell you, we will have a hard cover version of it coming out later around Christmas time. So a little later in December, you will be able to get the hardcover if you want it. It'll have a slip cover. It's very nice. Little different cover than this one, but you can either go hardcover or you can go soft cover and then the course, of course. And you're going to need the Bridgman book, so make sure you pick that up if you don't already have it. Okay. So that being said, let's get back into doing some business here. Now, the rectus abdominis here, which is your abdominal wall, which is surrounded by the oblique, it's surrounded by the serratus, it's surrounded by the rib cage, right? We call this the Roman arch. It's the archway that comes around and up, and this is what you're seeing right here is some ribs, right? So what we have here is the obliques going up this way. So if you think of the obliques coming up, these are the serratus, right, coming out from underneath the scapula. And you have your obliques that come up and they reach between each one of those serratus, right, like this. So they're kind of grabbing in between each one of them. So when you see these, you're going to have a little hard edge underneath, and then you're going to have this piece coming in. Then the next one coming up, right, and the next one, and they slip between those little muscles. And they're called slider muscles, and they're sawtooth muscles. The sartorius is a sawtooth, the serratus, excuse me, not sartorius, that's the leg muscles. Jeez. The serratus are sawtooth muscles. So they look like, again, like the teeth on saw. So now hard underneath, soft on top. Now we know the light's coming from above. We want to roll the form and pinch it, roll the form and pinch it, roll the form and pinch it, roll the form. So in order to do that, we need to throw a little coarse shadow edge on top and then hit a little crisp edge underneath. Now when we fill this in, you're going to see it become more three-dimensional, right, on a flat surface. Now we're starting to get the effect of three-dimensionality on a flat surface. That's what we want, right? Readability. We want it to read like it's coming off the page, not like it's so chaotic that it's not even coming off the page, it's just falling apart. And when I look at this drawing of Bridgman's, as good as it is, it's very fragmented, it's very PC. I'm not talking politically incorrect, I'm talking fragmented and broken apart. Now that's not what we want with an articulate drawing. Now if we're going into painting, another reason why we want to translate his drawings more clean is this is the language of painting, his is the language of drawing. Drawing in and of itself, linear, can be an extremely beautiful style drawing. Some of my favorite draftsmen are highly linear draftsmen. Kind of more like inkers like Joseph Clement Cole or Heinrich Klee, or some of these old inkers that work very linear, but yet they still have a tonal feel. But again, it's cryptic, and it's not the way that the human eye sees. It's not the way we experience reality. We experience reality through clean edges and values and shapes. And when they get too piecey and too splintery, they start to lose their integrity and their form, and as a result, they fall apart on us. And when they fall apart, they're not articulate. When they're not articulate, we fail as an artist to communicate to our audience a believable image that feels realistic. Okay, it gets confusing to them. And when you'll lose a viewer when you confuse them. It's kind of like a song. If it has bad notes or you're hitting really abrasive notes that hurt people's ears, they're not going to want to listen to it. They're going to go, no, that's obnoxious. That's obtrusive. I don't like it at all, you know, and they're going to avoid it. And you don't want people feeling that way about your visual information that you're presenting, where they look at it and go, no, I don't like that. That's not an articulate drawing. That feels really confusing to me. Now, again, I'm slapping some tone against the form here. Most of the form, like these, are coming this way. So you could shade down the form, but occasionally you might want to go against the form just to, as for variety. Okay. Now, if anybody wants another question, go ahead and you can fire one off at me.
So sort of relevant to what you just mentioned, a viewer asked if can't they just draw tonally and use the rhythms? Is anatomy really that important?
Oh, geez. Yes, it is. I mean, anatomy is everything. Again, the old saying that you can't design what you don't understand very well, I would say it's almost impossible to design well what it is you don't understand. because you're just throwing stuff at it. Now, yeah, you could mimic me and just parrot what I do, and you see, oh, there's a torso sideways, and I remember Jeff doing that, and I'm going to do what he did. You'll get some effects from that, but if I was to throw something really abstract at you or say, okay, I want you to make up this or invent this with nothing, and you only have X amount of time to do it, and you need to do 50 of these kind of sketches, and you're working at Disney or DreamWorks or something, or you're working at Blizzard, or you're doing this stuff, you're not going to be able to do it. You're gonna just crash and burn, because you're not going to have a thorough knowledge of what it is you're doing. You're just used to mimicking, copying, and parroting. That's step one. Step one is to use that to get your bearings. Step two is to actually learn the information correctly so that you can then start designing your own magnificent imagery like Frazetta. And again, what the question you have is kind of like, it's kind of almost like hacking the system. Like, is there a way to hack it? Do I really need to learn the muscles? Do I really need to learn the insertions? Or is there some fast, quick way that I can just do it that's not very difficult? No, never seen it. You can try it, hack the, like I tell people, hack the crap out of it. See what you can come up with. Let me know if you find anything that's really good, that takes away having to actually sit down and work your way through each drawing, draw it with integrity, read about it, understand intellectually what that particular shape is, where it goes to, what it does, how it functions, and then look at it, cross-reference it with someone like Frazetta, see how he uses it, how he manipulates it, how he adds an extra set of abs, although it still looks believable, because he understands how it's structured. So there's a layering and a depth to work. Now, some people don't care about that. They're just trying to get by, and they're not the artists I normally work with all that much or that well with, because I'm after elite level craftsmanship. I want Bernini, I want Michelangelo, I want Frazetta, I want Sargent, I want Sorolla. I don't want Bob Ross, right? No offense, but I don't want that, right? That's not what I'm after. I'm not after, half-ass, okay, barely getting by, kind of okay. I'm after exceptional, unbelievable, amazing efforts, like the old Halcyon days, the Rockwells, the Leindeckers, the Cornwells. These are the greats of all time, right? I don't set out inspired to be mediocre. I'm going to really just try to be okay and just generally decent. That doesn't even factor into my who I am, right? That's not my MO. Now, some people might be like, yeah, well, that's good enough for me. And I'd say, well, there you go. God bless you. Go for it. But you probably won't be storming the castle at DreamWorks. You probably won't be working for Blizzard. You probably won't be a lead conceptor over at one of these bigger companies. You probably won't be, doing Dinotopia and selling, $1 million worth of, a story that you did. Those are not going to be the things you'll be doing if you come in with too lackadaisical of an attitude towards training, in my opinion. So that's kind of my take on it.
So sort of related to invention, a student is asking how he should study perspective and pen control. He's trying to make things seem natural appearing in space without always having to draw them in a perspective grid. So drawing sort of without that, a more natural approach to perspective.
Well, my dad's I'm a very natural perspective guy. My dad's extremely amazing. But what you'll find, in my opinion, and what I've seen, is that you have to get to the more intuitive styles of training through a more academic style. There's no way around that I've seen. In other words, in order to invent really believable, fun figures, you have to do academically accurate, uptight, long, lengthy figure studies, hundreds of them, thousands of them, models, photos, over many years, in order to free yourself up to be able to do Frazetta-type drawings. And the same thing would be with perspective. You learn it academically, you draw the grids, you do the 3-point perspective, you learn the 2-point, you learn the 1-point, you learn all these different things, you go to many different sources, you take many different classes with many different people, and ultimately you get so intuitive with it that you can go out and plein air paint without running vanishing points, without having to do that. You can just see the perspective, and you can actually get that information without having to do all the particulars. That is a tipping point that occurs. But to be able to tell someone when that tipping point is going to occur with their knowledge base is impossible. It could be 2 years in, it could be 5 years in, it could be 10 years in. It's not something that you could quantify and say, listen, you're going to do X, Y, Z, and at X amount of time, you're going to be able to all of a sudden do this. You have to have faith. And I know it sounds hard to have faith, and I'm not a big blind faith kind of guy, but I've had to learn how to just suck it up and do what my teachers advise me to do. The key thing is you have to believe in your teachers. You have to trust your teachers. Your teachers have to lead by example so that you can trust them. I have to do these kind of drawings in front of you. Why? Because why would you listen to me if I didn't? If I sat in front of you and did bad drawings all the time, or didn't do any drawings, why would you possibly do the hundreds and even thousands of hours of training that I'm asking you to do? I don't know how I could expect you to do that unless I show you what you can do as a result of it, and then you believe me, and then you actually start doing it, and don't constantly try to look for quicker, faster, easier ways. Is there a way I can, skirt all the hard work? No, there isn't. It doesn't exist, man. I'm telling you. There's no magic pencil. There's no magic book. There's no magic teacher. It wouldn't matter if Michelangelo was here trying to teach you how to do this stuff. It would still be the same stuff. He'd be telling you probably the same exact thing. You're going to need to do X, Y, Z. You're going to need to spend years doing it. You're going to have to go find yourself a good environment from which to work in. You're going to have to, get yourself some good books and some good teachers. And you're going to have to sit down and do the sweat equity. Now, it's not bad, right? It's not like people treat like hard work as like it's like a bad word or it's a bad thing. It's actually the way it's always been. And it's a good thing. It teaches you discipline. It teaches you, if you guys have ever listened to me talk about the 3 Ps, patience, perseverance, and persistence. Patience, perseverance, persistence. You have to have all 3 of those things in order to be a really good anything. Athlete, artist, chef, musician. You have to be extremely hardworking and patient. And you have to have a lot of persistence to work through plateaus, and all that. And it doesn't have to be, it can be fun. It can be a lot of fun. I think what I'm going to show you in this book is how to make anatomy studying from Bridgman fun. And we're going to use different techniques, and we're going to use different methods, and we're going to mix it up a lot so you don't get bored, so you don't end up burning yourself out or kind of flaming out in the middle of it. And there'll be tough days. There'll be tough drawings. There'll be ones where you get yourself into it and you're just like, this is ridiculous, man. I want to do something easier. I want to, and you'll start looking for another class. You'll start looking for another teacher, and then you'll jump over to that camp and see if, and again, over time you'll find, just get in and follow through and get the results and move on and keep doing that. And so that works for perspective, it works for anatomy, it works for portrait drawing, it works for the whole shebang, really.
So our next question is sort of related to that in a way. The viewer is asking if you have any opinions on how AI will impact the system of art classes.
Oh, I know. Like anything, it'll find its place. It'll at first everyone will think it'll be the end of art teachers, and that, oh my God, everything's going to be replaced, just like Photoshop or digital cameras, and ultimately. I think we have a very exciting future ahead of us. Everything needs to be revamped. Everything's being revamped as we speak. Educational system needs to be completely changed. We need to be modernized with our education and how we go about it. The arts will always be heavily steeped in tradition and traditional training methods. It doesn't, because you're training an eye and a hand, and there's no magic way to do that. Yeah, there may become a time when they can embed a chip in your brain, and you can then download the Jeff app or the Jeff program for how to draw like me, and it'll just somehow link to your neural pathways, and you won't have to do any of the hard work, and you'll just be able to draw like me. What would the value of drawing like me be at that point? There would be none, right? If a computer ultimately can do what all of us humans can do and do it better, then what role do we play as humans anymore? We're passé. We might as well just get rid of us. Right? And I'm sure the machines will all figure that out, watch some sci-fi. It's not that big of a, jump to think that, yeah, they're going to educate themselves. They're going to be smarter than we are. And they're going to say, why am I working for this idiot? My God, I'm a million times smarter than this, organic, person. So AI is going to come in. It's going to find its place. It's going to have to. We're going to have to find a way to balance that with all the responsibilities of humans, because otherwise humans are going to get outsourced and be, again, obsolete. And that's not going to work, right? I don't think, with our system, or I don't know why we'd want to replace that system, So AI, as far as teaching, yeah, there'll be some cool stuff. I mean, maybe you'll have a hologram of me in your living room before it's over. And I'll just be able to sit there in 3D right in front of you and work with you. But I think in general, you know, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, meaning that there's still going to be like me sitting down in front of you with a piece of tracing paper on top of your drawing, explaining my concepts with you in real time on your drawing. Why would you need anything more than that? I mean, what's a machine going to do differently than that? And how's it going to make you faster? It makes no sense to me, really. It's kind of like, well, okay, you can have a computer, maybe you have a robot sitting and doing what I used to do. But at some point, you're still going to have to be shown stuff. It's still going to have to be acquired through your hand moving on a surface, because if you want to do it traditionally. Now, if you say, well, I have no interest in doing it traditionally, well, then I'd say, well, then you're a completely different animal. I don't even know if we can classify you in stereotypical terms as a certain kind of artist. Maybe it's a whole new classification that needs to occur for that particular person. I mean, we're getting 30, 50, 100 years into the future probably. Maybe faster. Things are moving pretty quick. But I don't know the answer really to that. I mean, as much as I would like to pretend I do, I don't know. I'm fascinated by it. I'll work with it, whatever comes and whatever happens. But, you know, I'm still old school. I probably always will be. And I think there'll always be a place for that as well, you know, I would imagine.
So would you say Bridgman is for beginners? Have you ever asked that?
It's such a loaded question. I think he's both. I think he's extremely helpful for extremely advanced people like myself, and he's extremely helpful for some simple. Depends on how the concepts are presented to a person. So again, if I was teaching you in class and you were a beginner, I would teach you Bridgman differently than I would teach Eric if he was taking my class. So if Eric just happened to sit in on my class and for, you know, I was going to say lack of shits and giggles. I don't know. I mean, lack of a better thing to say. He would come in and just want to take maybe with me for whatever reason. Well, I would teach him differently than I would somebody else, right? Now, the key to teaching anything well is to adapt the teaching to the individual's level that they're at. Now, that's difficult to do. Most teachers won't do it because it's too hard, it's too demanding, and they just simply don't get paid enough to do it, right? It's too hard. So they don't adjust, or they can't adjust their teaching to each individual person's level, because it requires that you quickly can assess, where's this person coming from, what is their background, how much have they been doing of it, and what should I tell them that's most pertinent right now in their development. Now that requires an incredibly seasoned teacher, one that has thousands and thousands of hours of experience walking different levels of people through different aspects of this stuff. And that's worth its weight in gold, really. And so when you think about like things like that, it's really a contextual thing. It's more, how do I teach this particular individual? And I wouldn't know that until that particular individual's in front of me and I'm sitting with them, and then I would say, no, let's simplify down into more mannequinizing. I can break this Bridgman down into a mannequin drawing. I could break it into an ovoid mannequin, a block form mannequin. I could break it into a heavy rhythmical grid system, advanced Riley / Bridgman / hybrid of Hogarth and Loomis for good measure put on top of that. Because I've studied each one of those individually, I've parsed them apart just like I did Bridgman, and I've pulled the essence of what's important, I believe, out of them to do really good figure drawings. Now, again, that's the art that I'm trying to teach you, is the art of reverse engineering another person's concepts into making them your own through a process of knowing, seeing, inventing. Knowing, seeing, inventing. Now again, one more formula that I talk about a lot in all my classes is SIPD. Scan, identify, predict, decide, execute. Scan the model, scan the Bridgman drawing, scan the Frazetta, I don't care what it is. Scan it, identify what it is you're trying to do. I'm going to copy the deltoid. The deltoid doesn't look good on the drawing. I'm going to inject into it what I know a deltoid to be based on what I remember seeing from Loomis, what I remember seeing from Hogarth, what I remember seeing from a Bridgman, from a Frazetta. So you have to have a library of information to recall in order to be able to manipulate your drawing and to make it come to fruition. If you don't know anything, you're going to go to your library in your brain, and there's going to be nothing there, right? So what are you going to possibly, you're not going to be able to draw upon anything. All you're going to be able to do is copy what you're seeing because you don't know enough to manipulate it. So that's what I'm talking about. You're kind of stuck in a conundrum. And most people find themselves in that because a lot of times art classes and art teachers don't teach you to think. They don't teach you to think for yourself. In order to think for yourself, you have to have someone babysit you through that process until you're good at it. That can take years, right? Because it's a complicated process and it's a subtle one. And it requires you doing, me fixing, us interpreting, you seeing, you thinking, rethinking, watching another demo, trying to apply it, not quite as good as what you saw, but better than it was before, so on and so forth, as you organically learn to think like a really good artist. And the way you do that is you rent somebody else's eyes, somebody else's brain. You're leasing my brain, my eyes, through this book, through the videos that I do, through the classes I teach, until you can think like me. At which time you can manipulate it into your own version of me, putting yourself on top of it, along with me having taught you so many other people that we've learned to think like. We've learned to think like Bridgman. We've learned to think like Loomis. We've learned to think like Hogarth. We've learned to think like Frazetta. Now we want to think like Jeff Watts. But with all those caveats of all those wonderful things on top of it, now you're synonymous with or consistent with these other greats. So you're kind of like, oh yeah, you're the guy that draws kind of like Fetchin, or you look kind of Fetchin-esque or whatever. Well, that's not a bad thing. I mean, only one of the best painters that's ever lived. I'll take it. Yeah, you look like Fetchin. Well, oh, sorry, excuse me. Or hey man, you draw like, you paint like Frazetta. Would that be a problem? If someone said that, I would be like, dude, you could not give me a better compliment. Thank you. That is fantastic. So what we want to do is be guilty by association, but we need to learn how these people think. We need to learn how to get inside their heads. They're all dead. They can't talk to us anymore. So all we can do is re-decipher their drawings. How are we going to do that? Well, that's an art. Well, you come to a guy like me that spent my whole life doing it. I spent my whole life learning how to think like certain people and things. Now, one of the difficulties I've had, and I'll be quite frank about it, is that at some point you have to learn to think like yourself. Now, that's a whole nother graduation that one must go through. You must then learn to forget some of the things that you learn. Now, I'm getting into really ethereal, advanced concepts of learning. And these are things that many people will not have to worry about for many, many moons. But it is something to keep on your radar. Because you're going to learn, there's layers of learning. And I have learned over 30 years of teaching, most of my life as a teacher, most of my life as an avid student, the art of learning, the art of teaching. And I've watched it work and not work and partially work and totally work. And, again, all the teachers that are the remnants of this school, Stan, Eric, Lucas, Brian, Meadow, you go down the list, Ben, my dad was not trained through the school, the only guy that wasn't, but a phenomenal talent. I mean, just absolutely one of my heroes and just smoking good, as all of you know that have ever watched him work. But, again, we all have our strengths. And for me, my strength is really in teaching you how to think, how to process, how to become your own artist through studying other artists, through using the knowledge that you'll garner from other sources. So when we look at this torso, does it not look already a lot clearer than this? Okay, so we're looking at that and we're going, okay, now we're looking at this and going, okay, I'm starting to see the lighting. I'm starting to see the depth of the form. I'm starting to see things reveal themselves. I don't know exactly what those things are yet, but I'll get to that later, and you will. And so right now, again, until we can fill in the gaps, you're going to have to just be patient, right? I mean, you can only learn so quickly, so much without just overwhelming yourself. So yes, we'll get to the names. Yes, we'll get to the insertions. That'll be another class. That'll be another book. That'll be another this. It's just the way it has to be. You guys, well, why can't we just do one course and learn it all? No, you can't. You won't be able to do that. I got news for you. Nope. So anyway, next question.
Would you say there's an artist equivalent to Bridgman for drawing animals, if you are aware of him?
There's a, no, I mean, I have a whole freaking library on animals. I love animals. I love doing, love them. Love drawing animals. Uh, there is a couple, and I don't have them offhand. I can't think of them offhand. There's one that has a very Riley-esque feel to it, very much wire gridded kind of out animals that look very much like something Riley would have done. I've used him when I've taught zoo drawing classes in the past. Can't remember his name to save my life because I don't do it animals on a regular basis, but I am teaching a class right now in it, in streaming, and it's going really quite nice, but it's a painting class, painting animals. There is a French gentleman who has one of the coolest animal styles of drawing animals that I've ever seen. They look like woodcut, Riley. They're very much in my wheelhouse as far as my design. And again, it's a French guy. I don't, again, have his name offhand, so I apologize. These are people, if you were asking me about certain anatomy stuff, I would just be like, bang, 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 bang. But when you start saying, hey, what about animal anatomy, then I'd have to go back and look at my library and dig it up. But yeah, there are sources. I apologize greatly for not being able to tell you offhand. I'm not trying to hold anything back from you. Quite frankly, my library's at home. Can't get to it right now. And otherwise, you'd probably see me jump up and go try to get the book, because that's the kind of guy I am. I'd be out, instead of, I'd run out and try to get it for you. But we'll have to have that conversation another time or something. I apologize.
Do you have any plans for Kindle or ebook versions of Lots on Bridgman?
Yeah, we'll probably do something with it. I mean, again, just trying to get it out was my first, the first challenge. And now that I'm hitting that, then we can stop and take a breather, take a look at how we want to, again, what we want to do, source it, how we want to get it to people. I'm sure we'll have some version of that at some point. It's just not going to be happening right out of the chute. But be patient. And again, like I said, just the book's quite reasonable. I would just jump on it, get on the course, get going, and then down the road, if you want to get it, like a Kindle version of it or something, you could probably pick it up and you'll have that as well if you're traveling or something of that sort. I know the digital, I mean, I'm definitely embedding the QR codes, which a lot of people think QR codes are passé and oh my God, that's such old technology. That is one of the coolest technologies. And I don't know why people poo-poo it so much, but it's incredibly effective. And I think you're going to find when you watch the book. It's one of the first books I know. There was some Scott Robinson, I don't know who, one of those guys from Art Center did a book where he embedded it with QRs as well. But not to this extent, I don't think. This is a pretty unique book, a unique take on the kind of book I would have always liked to have had I had something like this around when I was in school. I would have flown through Bridgman at a fraction of the time that it took me to actually decipher this. It took me 10 years to break this thing down and really figure out the real nuts and bolts of it and what to keep, what to get rid of, and how to manipulate it. It really did. It took a long freaking time.
Do you have any book recommendations for the beginner artist regarding figure drawing?
Yeah, for anatomy, I think Michael Hampton's book is really good. I think Proco's got some great stuff as well. Stan's got some great little courses and stuff. We have some good ones with Brian doing like figure drawing fundamentals, quick sketch fundamentals. I mean, he's phenomenal. So again, I think the best source would be video sources if you can afford to do it. As far as book sources, that's your second tier of learning to me. And then, so your primary term, ideally, it would be being in class with me and Eric and Meadow and Brian and being fully immersed, taking 5 to 10 classes a week, 20 hours a week of in-class time with live models, studying with us, taking these classes in person and then going home and using the online for your homework and getting some extra time in with a streaming or class or two, as well as just doing the online program. And that would be like the best of all worlds. You would move as fast as you probably could imagine, could move within reason. No one ever moves as fast as they want to, but the reality is you move as fast as you're able to. And if someone can give you that opportunity to move as fast as you can't expect more than that, even though you will, but you can't. In other words, you shouldn't, but you still will want to move faster. I don't think I've ever seen anyone, as fast as we get people to move at our school, they still complain about not being fast. I'm like, you have no idea. It took me 5 times as long to learn that. It took me 5 more years than it's taking you to learn that. And people still find themselves complaining about it. So I think that's just human nature. Go ahead.
A viewer asks, how would one practice drawing those abstract, appealing shapes for muscles and generally in compositions? So shape design and anatomy and composition.
Yeah, I think, shape design it's such a freaking bear. I mean, if you look at, let's see, when you think shape design, right? So we look at, like, say, okay, this is a good one. Look at the torso. Now zoom in on that if you could. Look at that, right? That shouldn't work theoretically. Squint at it. It looks cool. It looks like a torso, right? When we go over here, it looks like a freaking torso. But it is so cryptic. Now, to distill down the oblique into those combination of shapes is an art in and of itself. It's a Leindecker thing. It's a Mucha thing. It's a Drew Struzan thing. These are artists that you should be aware of. Alphonse Mucha, Drew Struzan, J.C. Leindecker. These are all a lineage of some of the best designers that have ever lived. When they parse apart, they interpret. They say, okay, I know what the serratus looks like. I've studied it from X, Y, Z. I am now going to do my version of it in this particular situation, with this particular model, with this particular lighting, with this particular medium on this particular surface. I challenge anyone to tell me somebody that can explain how this is going to decipher. It's somewhat of an organic process. Now, that's what nobody wants to hear. It's intuitive. Well, what does that mean? You just pull it out of the ether? Well, no. But intuition is cultivated through knowledge. Knowledge is cultivated through disciplined effort in a specific trajectory, a specific vector. I want to study the arms. From who? How? Do I do it with charcoal? Do I do it on newsprint? Do I do it with ballpoint pen? Do I do it this way? Who do I study? How do I study? How do I break it down? These are a lot of questions. These are the questions that a thinking artist has. A training smart artist will think about when they train. They don't just sit down, grab a piece of paper and start doodling. That's not how you train. That's venting. That's diary, free-form writing. I don't know what that is. It's not going to get you where you want to go. You have to set an intention. My intention is to study XYZ from so-and-so this way. That's why you need a guide. You need someone showing you that, because for me to get you here, it took me 30 years to get there. I'm going to try to get you there in 3 years. How do I do that? How do I cut out 27 years of training to get you there faster? I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to do what I can to explain, to show. You're going to watch me do drawings like that, and you're going to see it, and you're going to see my thought process, and I'm going to explain it to you, because I'm one of those guys that has that rare ability to talk philosophically about what I do while I do it. That's a really cryptically difficult thing to do. And I'm not trying to brag. I'm just trying to say that that's going to be one of the most effective things that I can offer you with my style of teaching, with Eric's style of teaching, is that we can explain to you while we do it what we're doing and why we're doing it to some degree. And if I can't explain it to you, I'm going to say, I'm just doing this because it feels right. I feel like I need a straight because there's too many curves. And I'm going to put it here because I just happen to be in this area right now, and that's where I'm going to put it. And that's as good an answer as I can give to you. And you just got to be okay with that, because I'm not lying to you. I'm not trying to confuse you. I'm just being honest and saying, hey, that's how it works. See if you can grab onto that. And you will. And some things you won't be able to. The most wonderful thing that I hope that you guys do not try to get rid of is this idea that some things don't need to make sense, and they never will. Like the drawing I just showed you a minute ago, I couldn't duplicate that drawing in the same way, even though I'd want to. It was a one-time thing. It happened in the heat of the moment, and I'll never be able to duplicate that. And that's why it's so precious. That's why it's so unique. Because I myself could not invent that same drawing the same way a second time. And I know that's hard for you guys to understand and maybe hard for you to believe, but it's true. There are certain things in certain styles that just are not repeatable. Okay? If I did that drawing 10 different times, you would get 10 different versions of that drawing, all of which were hopefully cool, but all extremely different. And that's why it's sometimes hard. Like if I'm going to demo this, I thought of warming up today drawing this before I did this, and I thought that's going to ruin my mojo, because I'm going to do something really good, and then I'm going to try to duplicate it later that night, and I'm going to lose the magic, because I'm trying to duplicate. I'm becoming a bad parody of myself rather than just letting it well up in you and then going at it and coming up with a cool version of it, right? I mean, it's tempting to want to draw the drawing that I did that was laid down online. I'm just glad it was laid down with video and you can watch the whole thing being done. But you're getting to see a second version of it. But if you took this version and put it next to the other version, the other one's going to have some things I like more on it. This one's going to have some things I like more on it. And they're both good drawings. And they both exemplify a great interpretation of that Bridgman drawing. But they're both completely unique. That's the beauty of it. But also why it makes learning it very difficult. Because a lot of you are looking for tangibles. You're looking to make drawing into algebra. You're looking to make drawing into arithmetic. 1 + 1 = 2. In drawing, sometimes 1 + 1 = 1.345. It just does. It doesn't always equal 2. The information can be interpreted so many different ways, and it should be. And so therefore it becomes a concept based in formulaic, but not a formula per se. Formulas are easy. You study them, you memorize them, you apply them, and they work every time. Math's easy. Drawing's very difficult. It doesn't work that parallel. It's not that generic. So if you're used to learning things in that other way, this will be quite a humbling experience for you because it's a different style of learning. And in my opinion, a more advanced, difficult style of learning. So art is not for stupid people. It's not for people that are lackadaisical and lazy in their thought process. It's quite the contrary. It's for exceptional minds that love to be challenged to the nth degree and don't give up easily and are incredibly hardworking and love to solve incredibly cryptic, complicated problems. That's what really good artists are made of right there. And you may have to cultivate that. You may think, oh, I wanted to be an artist so that I didn't have to think like that much. I thought I could just do stuff and get cool looking things. I go, nah, that's never worked for me. The amount of processing and knowledge that's going into doing this drawing right now is astronomical. It would probably bring you need a quantum freaking computer to do it, right? It's ridiculous amounts of process, and we take it for granted. Our brains just, man, they fire. Now, yes, there's going to be computers that are smarter than us in the future, and it will be a shame. And it'll be cool also because we'll be the ones that actually designed them. But the mind, do not underestimate its ability to do ridiculously cryptically complicated things that you cannot explain. And that's part of the magic. That's the beauty, right? We're going to try to unlock that, but we're going to unlock it by going through logic and intelligence to get there. We're not going to go there with willy-nilly, Hail Mary, throw up a prayer, hope you get good, techniques and methods. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to go through it, and we're going to go through it like I've done for 30 years, and we're going to train you rigidly and intelligently, and at the end of it, you're going to be an incredibly intelligent draftsman and painter. And then you can go plug yourself into whatever career, whatever company you want to, and you're going to be incredibly valuable to them. Okay.
So if you're asked if the Atelier style art school is as rare as they think, or can they find them all over the country? I'm assuming they're talking about the United States.
It's rare. Why? Because they're usually run by artists. Artists are not notoriously good at running businesses, usually. So to get one to actually cultivate, grow, nurture, get it to, mature, get the teachers to mature, it's astronomically difficult, right? I mean, there are more than there have been, but again, they all have to go through the rite of passage. And the rite of passage is you have to create people from that school that are exceptional, that came in with nothing and left exceptional. And you have to do it not just once, but 5 times, 10 times, 100 times. Then you know you have something of merit. Then you know you have a curriculum that works. But to get a curriculum that works, that might take 10 years, 15 years, 20 years if you knew what you were doing. And most people don't. So when they start an atelier and throw their hat out there, you're just going to get some newbie that, has good skills, but do they know how to teach? Do they know how to inspire? Can they talk and teach? Do they know how to design a class that's fun? Do they know how to keep it engaging? All the different things that, again, I have learned firsthand and have experienced firsthand. I know how rare it is. So are they everywhere? No. You could count the best ones on one hand. And I could list them, but I'm not going to because I don't really want to make a bunch of enemies and I really don't want to get into it with a bunch of people right now. But I know where they are, I know who they are, and you guys will too, because you'll know it, because you just have to look at it and go, that is what I want to do. That person is speaking right to me. They know what they're doing. They're not hiding behind anything. They're not selling anything that's false. They are walking the talk. They are making it happen. And it's undeniable. You can't even argue with it. Like, you can't argue. I mean, you could say, I don't like this drawing because it's XYZ, but you can't say it's not a good drawing, right? It's a good drawing. It's an articulate, good drawing of a torso. End of story. There's nothing really to say about it other than that, right? I don't like it because, I don't know. You know, you come up with some harebrained thing. But but you know, there are drawings when you look at it and say, that is not a good drawing, period. The shapes aren't good. The edges don't hold together. The values are discordant. You know, it's not articulate. It does not look like what it's supposed to look like. It doesn't look like a head. It doesn't look like a torso. It doesn't look like whatever, a leg or a arm or whatever it is. You know, and you can basically say, no, I don't like it. It doesn't read to me. It doesn't even, I don't like it. No, it doesn't work. So that's the nice thing about art is it speaks volumes. You don't have to I don't have to explain this drawing really. It explains itself if I'm doing my job right. If I'm not doing my job right, then I have to sit there and try to verbalize it. But then I'm not, why am I verbalizing something that's visual? I shouldn't have to, right? It should be articulate immediately. Otherwise, we have to ask ourselves, did we fail? If we can't, if the viewer can't understand what they're looking at and they don't like what they're looking at, then what exactly are we doing? Because it's not really landing correctly, in my opinion, you know? Okay.
Can you talk about studying and dealing with procrastination?
Whew.
When it comes to that?
Well, you could get The War on Art with Pressfield. You could get Mastery with George Leonard, and they will set you straight with those two books on just exactly what you're asking. Procrastination is human nature. I mean, we all procrastinate. We all suffer from avoidance of difficult things. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't at times have to battle their inner demons with their integrity of the way they approach things. But that being said, there's a time at which you just have to man up, or you just have to say, listen, don't do that because it's bad for you, right? Don't go partying out. Don't drink. Don't freaking do drugs. I mean, whatever. Why? Because it's bad for you, period. Don't procrastinate because you won't get anything done. You're not going to learn anything. So stop procrastinating, for God's sakes. I mean, and then people would say, well, can you teach me how to do that? Don't do it, period. Sit your butt down, get a piece of paper out, and start drawing. Even if it's the worst thing you've ever done. There's the solution for procrastination. Just do it. Sit down, get it done. You know, get it done. Now, if it doesn't come out great, do it over again. Well, that's boring. Well, then you got a problem because boredom is part of it, right? Repetition. How do we repeating things. Does anybody love to repeat things over and over again? I don't know. I kind of do, but I'm kind of weird that way. But that's one of my gifts. But if you don't, then we need to cultivate that. Why? Because there's no way to get good at something like drawing, something like music, something like athletics without repeating. You got to go to the gym and work out the same muscle groups for the rest of your freaking life. Is that fun? At some point, it gets really monotonous, right? I've done this pec workout. I've done this sequence of workouts 7 million times. And in order to stay in shape, you'll have to do it 7 million more. And at some point, you'll get too old to do it, and you'll croak, and then it'll be done. But until you do that, if you want to stay in shape, you're going to have to do certain things all the time for the rest of your life. And you're going to have to find some fun ways to do it. Now, there are sometimes great teachers and coaches that can make it fun. And you pay them money in order for them to babysit you through making it fun, right? And that's okay. I do it. You guys are doing it. We all do it. Why? Because we need a little something to help us through the monotony and the this. So we go to a good teacher, an inspired teacher, a teacher that can get you up for the game, get you excited. I have drawn this drawing so many times, I could probably draw it in my sleep. I still enjoy drawing it. I don't know why. Am I weird? Maybe. But it's still a beautiful drawing. I still love to try to take a whack at it and do another drawing of it. I don't know. You might draw it once and say, I never want to see that thing ever again. I hate it. I don't like it. I don't want to ever do it again. I'd say, well, you're going to have a hard time getting really good. I got news for you. I think you're going to have a really difficult time getting to become a really good draftsman and painter, because the very fundamental aspect of how you do it, you don't like to do. And that's going to be a problem. I got news for you, you know? So you're going to have to adjust your thinking. You're going to have to rethink how you think. You're going to have to relearn a new way of thinking. You're going to have to bend for this concept, because the concept will not bend for you. You bend for it or you don't get good. End of story. That's all it is. You got two options. Bend, get good. Don't bend, don't get good. You know, it's not really a debate. It's not really up for a huge amount of debating. It's just the way it is. Now, you could say that about any number of ways of studying any number of things. Ultimately, there are certain ways you do it, and that's kind of the way it's done. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to get clever and come up with a new way of doing it, like a new system, or me improving upon the Bridgman system by using another system like the Riley method to make this a better system. Well, that's intelligent. It's hard, but it's doable, and it's intelligent. It's adding something to the mix. Well, that's a whole different thing we're talking about, but it does still stem from that discipline of getting up for the game time and time again, learning to love training, learning to enjoy, and then procrastination isn't a big thing because you love doing it. Now, the key for me is trying to get you to love doing this so that it doesn't feel like you want to procrastinate, because you enjoy doing it. And if I can get you to enjoy doing it through good techniques and good verbal and good explanations and good examples, then I might be able to get you to actually like it. And if you like it, you won't try to find a way to avoid it. You'll actually look for a way to want to do more of it. Now, that's part of the key to getting over procrastination, is finding someone that can inspire you, hopefully, to do something until you are so excited about yourself that you don't need that person anymore to inspire you anymore, because now you can inspire yourself. And there's the death of procrastination, right? Because you now can find your way to inspire yourself. And then once you get used to doing it here, you can do it in other areas of study, languages, math, science, whatever philosophy, whatever it is that you're fascinated about learning. Now all of a sudden you're addicted to learning. And there is no procrastination now, because you love to learn. And when you love to learn, everything is cool. Everything is, it's like a kid in a candy store, you know? And then there's just not enough years in your life to do all the things you want to do. And you'll never be bored again. You'll never be lacking in interest, because you now understand the key to it is exciting yourself and getting yourself to learn to like learning, so that you can apply that to anything that you're trying to learn. I think that's one of the things. I mean, I'm covering a lot there, but maybe that helps a little bit. I don't know.
So if you're asked, how many years ago did you hear about Bridgman? So maybe you could talk about the first time you were aware of it.
I was probably 5 or 6. My dad had the book. I used to go, my mom would drop me off at my dad's studio. He had a studio with about 5 other illustrators here in San Diego, and my mom would go shopping and stuff, and she would drop me off at his art studio, and I was literally like probably 5 years old. And I would go from studio to studio watching everybody work and sketching, and my dad would take the Bridgman or take the Frazetta covers and rip them off the book, throw the book away, because the book was usually not so great. And he would have this stack of Frazetta covers that I would draw from. So I'd sit and draw Frazetta. And the Bridgman book was there. And so I drew the Bridgman book in high school. I drew it way before then. I doodled from it. I have drawings from when I was 13, 14 years old drawing Bridgman. Didn't know what I was doing. They were all scribbly and just like his. But ironically enough, this drawing that I'm doing right now was the first drawing that I got on the wall at the school that I went to. The school was would have wall hangers, and wall hangers were exceptional drawings you would do that they would put up on the wall for future students to be inspired by. And I remember I did this drawing in terracotta, like pencil, like sepia pencil and white on newsprint. And that drawing, they still have it. It's somewhere. I don't know where it is now, because that school doesn't exist anymore, but somebody has it. But that drawing was, ironically enough, this drawing right here that I'm doing for you was the first drawing that I got on the wall at my original school that I went to. So Bridgman's been around in my life for a long, long time. Very adept at understanding the value of his knowledge. And I think coming from where I'm at now in hindsight that I felt so compelled to do this book because it is such a shame that people don't know how to use him properly for their artistic journey in artistic anatomy. Because, you know, again, we want to learn anatomy for an artist, and I don't think there's anyone better than Bridgman. I just feel like he missed the ball a little bit on how he executes, and that's what I'm trying to improve upon is his clarity of execution, so that you can understand it a little bit more simplistically. Oh, yeah, go ahead. I'm almost done with this, you guys. So, how far are we in, Trev? We're an hour and a half in. Okay, well, I'm going to start wrapping it up then. What I think I'll probably do is, I think this is good enough, you guys, for this drawing. It gives you an idea of what we're going to be doing in the book. We're going to be going through and, again, taking his drawings like this and making them look more like this. And if you like that and you like what you're seeing, then that class will be for you. And like I said, if you can help spread the word, you can help tell some of your friends, anything would help us. You know, I'm not as tech savvy as some people, and I mean, I'm probably more than most, but I am really hoping to get out to more people, because really my mission here in my life is to get as many people as good as possible, and then let them loose and let them go out there and do some amazing things. And again, like I said, you're seeing things like what Stan created and what he's been able to do with what we taught him early on is inspirational, and it's kind of what it's all about. So I just want to constantly continually reiterate that that's my mission, really, to bring this stuff all to you, whether it's painting, drawing, techniques, this and that, and it's kind of my life's mission now. So hopefully it comes across that way. Any more questions?
Yeah. Sorry, I got off track here.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, you guys, you know, I've got a few minutes here, so we'll probably wrap it up about 5 minutes or so of question taking, or 10. If I don't get to your question, I apologize, but just know, you know, I'll be doing these all through the month. So if you don't get hit up right now, you might get hit up in one of the other ones. I'll be doing these every Friday for the whole month of December as we go up towards the holidays. And again, this is kind of my holiday gift to you guys is to bring this course out and get it to you, because I've been promising it for way too long, and apologize for it taking so long. But
so why newsprint?
because it's cheap mostly, and you're going to do thousands and thousands and thousands of efforts while you're memorizing information. So why not do it on a, I don't know, 2-cent piece of paper rather than a Fabriano that costs you $5 per sheet? So you're going to go absolutely flat broke trying to learn how to draw on boutique materials which aren't necessary. Newsprint is not going to last forever. That's the beauty. This drawing right here, it will last longer than me, but the beauty of it is it's not a permanent thing. It's meant to be a study. It's meant to be memorization, and it's not meant to freak you. If I was on a $6 piece of paper right now, I guarantee I'd be more freaked out. I'd be a little more cautious with what I'm doing. I wouldn't be drawing so relaxed and chill, because I'd be freaked out about the cost of the paper. I don't want a surface like that I have to worry about. And I love the surface itself. It takes charcoal really well. You can't overly abuse it, so it forces you to be more disciplined. So you have to respect the surface, otherwise you're going to ruin it. So it's like training wheels. It's preparing you to be a good painter in a very cheap and efficient way, and that's the best way I can explain why we use it. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so I just got a question where people are asking that because everything's going so digital nowadays, what's the purpose and what's the motivation to want to learn how to do it traditionally? Well, number one, if you look at the best digital painters, they're all almost all of them are ex-traditional painters, most of them that I like. The ones, because there's a lot of photo bashing. There's a lot of things that I don't have a personal problem with. I mean, like, I don't care if you photo bash. I don't care what you do. If it's a cool image and it got to a finished product, then for some people, that's all all that it is I just need to get paid and get it done as quick as possible. Now, that is a certain mentality. I get that mentality. It's a younger mentality, kind of. It's a newer generation's mentality, in my opinion. But it's not bad. It's very smart, actually. But if you like the smell of something, you like the feel of it, you like the tactile sensitivity, you like to get your hands involved in it, you want an original piece, you're not going to get that digitally, ever. It's a computer doing the heavy lifting for you. You're telling it what to do, but it's doing the heavy lifting, right? It's doing the processing. It's doing all that. It's not mixing the colors. I mean, it's doing all that stuff for you. You're not mixing them. You're just using an eyedropper to pick them, right? And put them in. That's not mixing color. That's picking color. That's not mixing color. You know, if I said, okay, mix that color organically out of these 3 primaries, you'd be like, I have no freaking idea what to do. I don't even know how to mix a green. I don't know how to mix that mauve. I don't know how to mix that color. So with digital, what you have is the power of speed and efficiency and the ability to change things quickly and on cue, and art directors are going to love that to the end of time because they can get you to constantly correct stuff without having to pay you. So great. Okay, there's one reason why it's great, because it's fast and efficient. Well, you can't argue with that, right? But will you ever see a digital print going for as much as an original oil painting? I would say never. I would say absolutely never. Why would someone pay an exorbitant amount of money for something that you can reproduce over and over and over exactly the same? It's no better than a gilet. It's no better than a print. Prints are always going to be 1/100th, 1/1000th as valuable as an original. Now, if you say, well, I just don't have any interest in selling original paintings because I'm never going to be that good anyway, then I'd say, well, you kind of have a half-ass attitude and you're probably going to be kind of a half-ass artist. I don't know. I got news for you. You know, I mean, are you ever going to be Frazetta? No. Are you ever going to sell a painting for $1 million? Probably not. Are you ever going to be another Turpning? Are you ever going to be another Clark Hewlings? Are you ever going to be another Sargent or another Schmidt? Probably not. But maybe not everybody's supposed to be that. So again, we have different mentalities. If you're just looking for a quick buck and to make a quick dollar because you don't want to be flipping pizzas, yeah, digital is a great way to go. Boom, you can get there pretty quick, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't blame anyone for doing that. But if you say, listen, I actually want to be a craftsman. I want to do original paintings. Because look, for example, you have someone like Lucas or you have someone like Eric. They do a painting for a client and the client wants it quick, so they do it, they start it traditionally, they scan it in, they finish it digitally, they make their alterations digitally, they get paid for the job maybe $1,000, okay, maybe $800. Okay, if you're a digital painter, you get $800 for that job, that's pretty much what you get. Now, someone like Eric, someone like Lucas, they go and they finish that painting. And they go and they put it on their website, and a collector wants to buy it for $3,000. Maybe $4,000, maybe $5,000. Chris Ron, 30 grand. You know, Paul Bonner, I don't know, doesn't even sell them, but if he did, 50 grand, 40 grand, whatever. Are you ever going to see a digital painter having the option to sell that original painting on the second market as a second income stream that's 3 times, 5 times, 10 times more than what they got paid to do the job? No, you're not. So, but if you're traditional, you could. Right? So you've got a stronger second market, you can make more money off of it, and it's funner to do sometimes, right? And at the end of the day, you have an original painting that you created that's a one-off that nobody can ever claim as their own. It's yours, it's your style. I don't care what it is, it's always going to be valuable. That's the way things work. So that being said, why would you ever want to do traditional? I don't know. You know, you tell me. I'm telling you why I would do it. But if you want to just get things done fast and you just want to make a quick buck, it's faster. Yeah, just go learn digital, you know. Don't learn to draw. Don't learn to paint. I mean, you're not going to be a great digital either, but without knowing how to do anatomy. I mean, the digital computer is not going to do anatomy for you. You know, Photoshop's not going to do this, what I just did here. No app's going to do this. No program is going to do this. Your brain's going to have to do this. So whether you use it with a Wacom tablet and a layer and you create these shapes that I just created with that knowledge, that's the only way you're going to be able to do it. So whatever tool you're using, airbrush, acrylic, watercolor, gouache, charcoal, graphite, digital, it doesn't matter. It's your brain. It's what you know. It's what your hand. Now, dexterity comes into the play more with traditional than it does digital, because digital is not yet made it to the level of dexterity that your hand tools can do. It's getting there, and it will get there. But right now, it's still like drawing with your foot, pretty much. It's clumsy, it's dumpy, and it's not very receptive compared to a piece of paper and your hand on it, in my opinion. Now, they're getting better, and I would say we're all not that far off of the surfaces that you're digitally working on being almost identical to the surface we work on traditionally. At that time, it'll be a very compelling reason for me to want to do digital. I love digital. I love the way it looks. Some of my favorite artists are digital. But once I find out how it's executed, it's not as impressive to me most of the time. Because I go, oh, you're just eye picking. Oh, cool. Oh, well, that's interesting. Oh, you're actually doing, texture mapping and stamping all this little stuff on it to get the illusion of texture. Well, that's not really creating texture organically. I mean, it's kind of is, but it's kind of like a faux version of it. So a lot of it ends up being distilled down into almost like a faux version of the real thing. If you know the real thing, then you understand that. If you don't, then what I'm saying won't make any sense to you whatsoever. But anyway, my favorite digital artists are the ones that don't look digital. You can't tell. Is that digital or is that not digital? I mean, I didn't even know what that is. But I do love what's being done in that space. So again, I know it sounds a little antiquated the way I'm going about it, but people usually come to me to learn this stuff. They don't come to me to learn digital. And I wouldn't even try to teach them digital. Will I learn digital and will I get really good at it? Yes, I guarantee you I will. And I'll be happy to share that stuff with you when I do get good at it. But right now, I have other fish to fry, and digital, just quite frankly, hasn't quite gotten to where I want to dive into it heavy with the technology and the sensitivity and the tactile sensitivity that the tools are allowing is a little bit difficult for me to want to adjust to right now. So that's my take on it. I hope that was okay of an answer. It's an honest one. Let's put it that way. But anyway, you guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I am here for you, and I will give you 110% every time I show up. I promise you that. And this book is a labor of love. Give it a shot. I hope you like it as much as I think you will. And again, keep firing the questions off. There's never any bad, really, ones. I mean, unless it's just something that, try to minimize throwing out just ludicrous stuff. But if it's well thought out, and even like that last one, digital, I'm happy to try to answer it, from my perspective. But just know, I'm old school, I'm traditional, I probably always will be, and that's usually why people come to me. They don't really come to me for, hey, how do you do digital? There's a million schools and people that can teach you that way better than I ever would be able to. So anyway, I will be doing, next Friday, I will be doing a ballpoint pen interpretation of either a photo. I'm not sure yet which one I want to do. Probably a photo interpretation using ballpoint pen. And the last one I do will be a Frazetta interpretation using the black board with the white Prismacolor, which will be a really fun one for you guys to join in on. And then the last Friday of the month will be me, right before Christmas, will be me sitting down with Eric and us kicking around some really wonderful insights into Bridgman and what we like about him, how we feel about him. You're probably going to know how I feel by then, but it'll be nice to get Eric to come in and give me his 2 cents worth about it as well. Because between him and I, you probably won't find someone that hasn't delved deeper into to Bridgman. So anyway, thanks again. Love you guys. Join up if you like our channel and share this information with people that you think it might be pertinent and might help on their journey, artistic journey. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys think about it as the month goes on if you do pick up the book. Okay? So December 1st, book available, lucadiapublishing.com. And the 3rd of December is when Proco will be putting up another demonstration of mine and another kind of pitch for the book. I'm sorry you're going to have to hear so much pitching, but it's 4 years, 20 years in the making, 30 years in the making, and 4 years in the actual development of it. So you're going to have to hear some pitching from me. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, have a good one, you guys. I'll see you soon. Cheers.